The Queen's Man Part 2. The world started noticing. It started with whispers, then headlines. Well-known CEO flirting with bodyguard Ariana Vale arrived at the annual Global Leadership Summit flanked by security, cameras flashing relentlessly. She wore authority like a second skin, tailored ivory suit, spine straight, expression unreadable. But this time, something was different. Lucas Kane walked half a step behind her, like always. But now the world saw him, tall, sculpted, immaculately controlled. His presence was commanding in a way that unsettled men twice his rank and drew lingering looks from women who sensed danger wrapped in discipline. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The way his eyes tracked every movement around her made it clear. Nothing reached Ariana Vale without going through him. Social media exploded before the doors even closed. CEO and bodyguard? That look between them? Tell me I'm not imagining it. He looks like he'd kill for her. They weren't wrong. Inside the hall, Ariana took the stage with her usual brilliance, speaking about expansion, power, and legacy. Lucas stood just off stage, scanning the crowd, cataloging faces, exits, threats. He had done this for years, but now every glance felt sharper, heavier, more personal. When she finished, applause thundered. As she stepped down, her eyes met his for half a second. That was all it took. 5 years of discipline flickered in his gaze. 5 years of knowing the exact way her shoulders tightened when she was tired, the way she inhaled before difficult decisions, the way she leaned slightly toward him when the world grew loud. Later, behind closed doors, the silence between them crackled. "You handled that well," he said quietly, removing his jacket, muscles shifting beneath his shirt. "You mean the speech?" she replied, turning to face him. "Yes," he said. Then, after a beat, "and the attention." Ariana stepped closer. "They're going to talk. They already are." "And you?" she asked softly. "Can you handle it?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "I've handled worse." Her lips curved faintly. "Good, because I'm not stepping back." "Neither am I." The line between roles didn't disappear. It solidified. She was still the CEO. He was still her protector. Only now, the world knew something dangerous lived between them. And somewhere, watching from the edges of that same world, someone else noticed too. Not with curiosity, with intent. The backlash came quietly at first. Ariana felt it in the boardroom, the pauses that lasted a fraction too long, the smiles that didn't reach eyes, the questions that sounded supportive but carried hidden edges. "Optics matter," said Marcus Hale, a senior investor, folding his hands with practiced calm. "Your personal choices are becoming visible." Ariana didn't blink. "My performance isn't." Across the table, a few executives shifted. Others watched Lucas instead, standing near the door, immovable, unreadable. Some stared openly now, measuring, comparing, resenting. Marcus continued. "There's concern about dependence, about influence." Lucas felt it then, the challenge disguised as corporate concern. Men who had always underestimated Ariana now looking for leverage. And him? They saw a weakness, a distraction, a liability they could exploit. Ariana leaned forward, voice cool. "Lucas Kane has saved my life. He's protected this company's interests longer than anyone in this room. If that makes you uncomfortable, you're welcome to sell your shares." Silence followed. Lucas didn't move, but his awareness sharpened. Rivalry wasn't loud, it was patient. Later that evening, as the penthouse lights dimmed and the city stretched below them, Lucas adjusted the security feeds himself. Something wasn't right. "Someone's testing the perimeter," he said quietly. Ariana looked up from her tablet. "Press?" "No." His jaw tightened. "This is deliberate. Clean. Intelligent." He pulled up logs, access attempts, subtle reroutes, blind spots probed and abandoned. Someone with resources, someone watching how he protected her. And then a message appeared on a private device. "You chose visibility. Now accept consequence." Lucas shut the screen off instantly. "What is it?" Ariana asked, already sensing the shift in him. She always did. "We're accelerating protocols," he said. "Effective immediately." "Lucas, I won't debate this." The firmness in his voice wasn't dominance. It was fear sharpened into control. From across the city, in a glass-walled office overlooking the same skyline, a man watched news footage replay on silent. Ariana, Lucas, the way they stood close without touching. So, he murmured, fingers tapping the screen, the bodyguard has become the center of attention. Behind him, a woman smiled thinly. Every empire has cracks, she said, and every protector has limits. The man leaned back, satisfied. Let's see how well he guards her when everyone wants a piece of her. Back in the penthouse, Lucas stood behind Ariana as she gazed out at the city. He didn't touch her, but his presence wrapped around her like armor. They're coming for you, he said softly. She nodded, unafraid. Then let them. The game had changed, and this time it wasn't just about her safety. It was about control, jealousy, and power. And who would survive when all three collided? Ariana didn't expect him to walk back into her life so effortlessly. Ethan Cole stood near the bar at the private members' lounge, suit perfectly tailored, confidence worn with the ease of a man who had rebuilt himself successfully. Former director, former insider, former almost. Ariana, he said warmly, stepping forward with a smile that carried memory. You look exactly the same. She smiled back, genuine, surprised. You don't. You look great. He laughed. Starting your own company will do that. Lucas noticed everything from across the room. The way Ethan angled his body toward her, the familiarity in his voice, the way Ariana didn't stiffen when he stepped closer, didn't retreat the way she did with most men. History. Lucas moved closer without thinking, positioning himself just behind her shoulder, not touching, never touching, but present. Ethan's eyes flicked to him instantly. So this is him, Ethan said, curiosity sharp behind the smile. The famous shadow. Lucas met his gaze, unblinking. Lucas Kane. Ethan Cole, he replied, offering a hand. Lucas took it. The grip was firm, competitive, testing. Ariana felt the tension immediately. Ethan left the company 6 years ago, she said. He built Cole Dynamics from scratch. I heard, Lucas replied calmly. Impressive growth. Ethan's smile sharpened. I learned from the best. The conversation flowed easily after that. Too easily. Ethan knew her rhythms, her humor, her tells. He reminded her of late nights planning expansions, whispered jokes in boardrooms, the man who had once looked at her like she was more than power and authority. And Lucas watched. He saw the way Ethan leaned in when she spoke, the way his eyes lingered too long. The subtle claim in his presence, I knew her first. Later, as Ethan stepped away to take a call, Lucas spoke quietly. He wants something. Ariana glanced at him. He's always been like that, ambitious. That's not what I meant. She studied Lucas's face, controlled but tight at the edges. Are you jealous? She said softly with a hint of a smile. No, he replied instantly. She smiled. You are. His jaw flexed. He knows you. So do you. I know you better. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Her breath caught, not from the statement, but from the certainty behind it. When Ethan returned, his gaze flicked between them, sharper now, assessing, measuring distance. You look happy, Ariana, he said, grounded. I am, she replied. His eyes lingered on Lucas. That's new. He is good for me, she said lightly. Ethan smiled, but something darker passed behind it. Be careful, he said, voice low. Power attracts strange loyalties. Lucas didn't miss the warning disguised as concern. As Ethan walked away, Lucas leaned closer to Ariana, voice just for her. He's not a threat yet. Yet? She echoed. Lucas's eyes followed Ethan's retreating figure. Men don't orbit what they don't want. From across the room, Ethan glanced back once more, just long enough to see the way Lucas stood behind her now, unmistakably close. And for the first time since leaving her company, Ethan Cole felt something sharp and unwelcome twist in his chest. The realization that Ariana Vale was no longer unguarded. The messages started innocently. Good morning, Ari. Hope today's meetings go smoothly. Have you eaten? You forget when you're focused. Lunch this week? My treat. Old times. Ariana didn't hide them. She didn't flaunt them either. They simply appeared. Her phone lighting up on the desk, a soft smile she didn't realize she wore. A pause before replying. Lucas noticed every single one. He always did. 5 years had trained him to read her body before she spoke. How her shoulders relaxed when she felt safe. How her fingers tapped when she was restless. Now there was something else. Not desire, not secrecy, familiarity. And that unsettled him more than open flirtation ever could. He stood farther away now when she took calls, turning slightly to give privacy, eyes still scanning the room, the windows, the exits. His job demanded distance. His heart resisted it. At night, when the penthouse lights dimmed and Ariana leaned against the couch scrolling through her phone, Lucas would stand by the windows, arms crossed, watching the reflection of her smile in the glass instead of the city below. "Ethan checks in a lot," he said one evening, voice carefully neutral. "He's always been attentive," she replied lightly. "You know that." "Yes," Lucas said. Too well. He knew Ethan's type. Charming, patient, the kind of man who waited quietly, convinced time would eventually reward him. And Lucas knew something worse. Ethan knew Ariana before the danger, before the walls, before Lucas had become more than her shadow. By the 5th day, the lunch invitation came again. Just us. No boardrooms, no noise. Ariana hesitated this time. Lucas felt it without seeing it. "You don't have to stop living because of me," he said quietly from across the room. Her head lifted. "Is that what you think?" "I think," he said carefully, "that I can't stand between you and the world, even if I want to." The admission cost him more than he let show. She studied him then, really looked. The tension in his jaw, the restraint in his posture, the way he'd stepped back, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. "I'm not going because I want something," she said softly. "I'm going because I won't be controlled by fear, or by anyone." Lucas nodded once. "Then I'll be nearby." Not with her. Nearby. The word tasted bitter. The next afternoon, Ariana sat across from Ethan at a sunlit cafe. Laughter drifted easily between them, the comfort of shared history smoothing every edge. Across the street, inside a parked car, Lucas watched through the windshield. He saw Ethan lean forward, saw Ariana smile, saw the ease. And for the first time in years, Lucas Kane felt the sharp, unfamiliar sting of something he had never allowed himself to feel. Helplessness. He didn't want to interfere, didn't want to cage her, didn't want to become the kind of man who confused protection with possession. But as Ethan's hand hovered just a second too long near Ariana's, Lucas's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Watching was harder than guarding. And somewhere deep inside him, a line began to blur, between duty and desire he could no longer pretend didn't exist. Lunch was supposed to be simple. That was what Ariana told herself as she set her phone face down on the table, sunlight catching the rim of her glass. Ethan sat across from her, relaxed, familiar, dangerously at ease. "You look good," he said, not disguising it this time. "Not just powerful, lighter." She smiled politely. "Life has been intense." "I can imagine," he replied, "the world watching your every move now." "And you?" she asked. "You seem to be doing very well for yourself." Ethan chuckled. "I try, but not as good as you." Across the street, Lucas shifted his position, adjusting the angle through the cafe window. He didn't need audio to read body language. Ethan was leaning in now, too comfortable, too confident. Back at the table, Ethan lowered his voice. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. "Before everything became guarded?" Ariana hesitated. "I don't live in the past." "I do," he said softly. "Sometimes." His hand moved then, resting briefly over hers, casual, almost innocent, but deliberate. Ariana didn't pull away immediately, not because she wanted it, because she was startled by how natural it felt. Lucas's breath went tight in his chest. He was out of the car before he realized he'd opened the door. By the time Ethan withdrew his hand, Ariana's phone vibrated. "Wrap it up," Lucas sent. Now. Her heart jumped. She looked up instinctively and caught sight of him across the street, standing where she could see him clearly now, not hidden, not distant, watching. She stood. I have to go. Ethan followed her movement, frowning slightly. Already? Yes. Sorry, something has come up. He rose too, lowering his voice. Ariana, I've always been there for you. You know that. She met his gaze. Steady, unmistakably firm. I do, but things are different now. Ethan's eyes flicked past her, straight to Lucas. Understanding dawned. So it's him, Ethan said quietly. Not accusing, assessing. Lucas stepped forward then, placing himself beside Ariana. Close, unapologetic. It's me, he said calmly. The air between the two men tightened. History versus presence, memory versus now. Ethan smiled thinly. You're very protective. Lucas didn't blink. I'm very attentive. Ariana exhaled slowly, grounding herself between them. This isn't a competition, Ethan nodded, stepping back. Of course not. Then to Lucas softly, take care of her. Lucas held his gaze. I always do. As they walked away, Ariana didn't pull back from Lucas's proximity, and Lucas didn't step away this time. Not when his hand hovered near the small of her back. Not when the city swallowed them whole. Not when he finally realized watching from afar was no longer enough, because the lines had already moved, and none of them could pretend otherwise anymore. The proposal arrived 48 hours later. Not through whispers, not through back channels, through official email, legal headers intact, compliance attachments pristine. Ethan Cole wanted a meeting. A strategic partnership, Ariana read aloud in her office, scrolling slowly. Joint infrastructure expansion, shared logistics, minority stake only. Lucas stood near the window, arms crossed. It's well constructed. Is that a compliment? She asked. It's an observation. She looked up at him. You don't trust him. I don't distrust the paperwork, Lucas replied. I distrust timing. The meeting took place in Ariana's boardroom. Glass walls, controlled access, 2 assistants present and legal counsel in attendance. Ethan arrived exactly on time, confident without being casual, carrying himself like a man who belonged there. Strictly business, he said, smiling easily as he shook Ariana's hand. I value what we've built together too much to blur the lines. Lucas noted the phrasing. Too much. The presentation was flawless, projections conservative, risk mitigated. Every question answered before it was asked. Ethan never overreached, never lingered too long on Ariana, never challenged Lucas's presence. If anything, he seemed careful, too careful. This benefits both companies, Ethan said, hands resting flat on the table. And it keeps control where it belongs, with you. Ariana studied him. She saw no cracks, no ego play, no hidden hooks. I'll have my team review it, she said finally. Of course, Ethan replied smoothly. No pressure, I'm patient. Lucas's eyes stayed on him long after the meeting ended. He didn't touch you, Lucas said later, once they were alone. Ariana arched a brow. You noticed that? Of course I did. She sighed softly, rubbing her temple. It's clean, Lucas. Painfully clean. That's what worries me. That night, Lucas ran independent checks, public filings, vendor histories, third-party audits. Everything matched. Too well. At 2:14 a.m., a secure alert pinged on his private device, not from Ethan's company, from an external node probing their security grid. Slow, intelligent, adaptive. Someone was running a background check on him. Lucas shut the screen off quietly and walked back to the bedroom. Ariana slept on her side, phone resting loosely in her hand. He stood there for a long moment, watching her breathe. Ethan's deal might be innocent, but someone else was watching the same way Lucas did, and that was never coincidence. By morning, Ariana would have a choice to make, and Lucas would have to decide how far he was willing to go, not as her protector, but as the man who refused to let anyone else get close enough to hurt her. Power had always been loud to her. It lived in boardrooms and signatures, in the way rooms stilled when she entered and decisions bent in her direction. Power announced itself. It demanded attention. What unsettled her now was how quiet it had become. Lucas stood at the far end of her office, posture immaculate, expression neutral, eyes tracking the city beyond the glass walls. He was doing exactly what he had always done, guarding her perimeter, reading exits, counting threats before they materialized. But there was space between them, measured, intentional. She felt it the way one feels a sudden drop in temperature. The legal team says Ethan's proposal is solid, she said, not looking up from the tablet in her hand. Low risk, conservative projections, no hidden control clauses. I agree, Lucas replied evenly. That alone made her glance up. 5 years ago, Lucas Kane would have pushed back. He would have flagged timing, motives, optics, anything that might require her to reconsider. Today, he simply agreed. She set the tablet down slowly. You don't have concerns? I have none that can be substantiated, he said. Not none that exist, none that could be proven. Ariana studied him. His suit was perfectly tailored, as always. His hair trimmed with military precision. His body, built like stone, was angled just enough away to signal professionalism. He was stepping back. She felt it in the absence of his hand at the small of her back when she moved, in the way he gave her more room on calls, in how his voice had cooled, flattened, armored. It irritated her more than any board challenge ever had. You've been distant, she said. Lucas didn't react immediately. When he did, it was subtle, a tightening at the corner of his jaw. I've been appropriate. The word landed like a challenge. I didn't ask you to be appropriate, she quietly. You didn't, he replied. I am adjusting. For Ethan? For you. Silence stretched between them, thick, weighted. Ariana leaned back in her chair. You don't need to protect me from him. Lucas's gaze shifted then, sharp and focused. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He hesitated, just a fraction too long. I won't compete, he said finally. Not for your attention, not for your trust. Her chest tightened. No one asked you to. No, he agreed softly, but with him it sure feels like it. She stood, heels clicking once against the marble floor, and crossed the distance herself. He didn't move, didn't retreat, but he didn't step closer either. That sounds like jealousy, she said. Lucas met her eyes, dark, controlled, dangerous in how little he allowed to surface. That sounds like awareness. She searched his face for something, heat, frustration, longing, but found only restraint sharpened to a blade. You used to tell me everything, she said. And I still do, he replied. Just not the things that you are not ready to hear. That was the moment she understood. Lucas wasn't pulling away because he didn't want her. He was pulling away because he wanted her too much. For Lucas, distance was the only way to maintain his discipline. He had learned that early, long before Ariana Vale, long before tailored suits and penthouses in the sky. Distance kept you alive, distance kept lines intact, but distance from her felt like self-inflicted damage. He watched her move through the office, confident, controlled, lethal in her calm. He knew every version of her, the one the world saw, the one that emerged late at night when the armor slipped, the one that only existed in silence. Ethan Cole didn't know those versions. He knew her history. He knew how to use the familiarity between them. He knew how to sound harmless and trustworthy. That made him dangerous. Lucas had read the messages, not because he invaded her privacy, but because Ariana didn't hide them. Have you eaten? Don't forget to rest. Lunch when you're free. Nothing inappropriate, nothing actionable, which was exactly the problem. Ethan was circling. Lucas's role required neutrality. His heart refused it. At night, when Ariana worked from the living room, phone in hand, Lucas positioned himself farther away than usual, by the balcony doors, eyes on the skyline, senses split between the city and the woman he refused to cage. Every instinct screamed to step closer, to reclaim his space, to remind her, himself, that what existed between them wasn't replaceable. But he didn't. Because power taken wasn't power kept, and Lucas Kane had never needed to force anything. Still, as Ariana's phone lit up again and her lips curved in that faint, thoughtful smile, something unfamiliar stirred beneath his discipline. Not rage, fear. He could feel her slipping away, and there was nothing he could do about it. That night, she didn't invite him to stay. She didn't ask him to leave either. They moved through the penthouse like two forces aware of each other's gravity, careful not to collide. When she passed him in the hallway, their shoulders almost brushed. Almost. She stopped. "So, this is what we're doing?" she asked softly. "Giving each other room until someone else fills it?" Lucas turned slowly. The city lights framed him in shadow and steel. "No," he said. "This is me trusting you to choose." Her breath caught. "And if I don't?" she asked. His gaze dropped just briefly to her mouth, then back to her eyes. "Then I'll still be here," he said. Watching, protecting, wanting. The honesty in his voice was devastating. She nodded once, unable to speak past the sudden pressure in her chest. As Lucas walked away, returning to his post by the windows, leaving Ariana with more questions than answers. She could feel his pain coupled with her own longing, but still didn't know how to fix it. Lucas didn't move from the balcony until well past midnight. The city sprawled below like a glittering map of opportunity and danger, but his mind was locked on a different kind of battlefield. Ariana Vale, the woman he had protected for 5 years. The one man could never seem to claim, not fully. Not yet. Her phone had been lighting up all evening. Soft chimes, brief vibrations, subtle enough to ignore if you weren't paying attention. But Lucas was always paying attention. "Good night, Ari. Sleep well. Don't work too late. Lunch tomorrow, I'll make it worth your while. Ethan Cole." Every message was carefully measured, every word meticulously neutral. But Lucas could feel the invisible thread Ethan had started to weave, slowly, patiently, intentionally. Lucas clenched his jaw. He could argue logic with her. He could argue loyalty. He could argue business and security. But he could not argue desire, nor the ache it left in his chest when someone else stepped into proximity with her. And he wouldn't. Not tonight. Not while she slept unaware of the storm swirling in his mind. Morning light came through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, painting the room in soft golds and muted grays. She stirred in bed, phone buzzing again. "Good morning, Ari. Coffee? Breakfast? Don't forget to hydrate." She smiled faintly. It wasn't inappropriate, not even flirtatious. It was caring, considered, comfortable. But it made her chest tighten in a way she hadn't expected. Lucas, standing in the corner with his coffee, noticed it instantly. He didn't comment. He didn't need to. His glare, subtle and heavy, said more than words ever could. "You've been texting a lot," he said finally, voice low, measured. "I've always kept in touch with friends," she replied lightly, scrolling the message. "You make it sound like, having an affair." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Friends who send good night and good morning texts for a week straight aren't just friends." She paused. Something in his tone, in the taut muscles along his jaw, told her he wasn't just worried about propriety. He was worried about himself. And that both terrified and thrilled her. "I'll handle it," she said softly, but she didn't meet his eyes. She was acutely aware of the pull in the room, the tension that had grown heavier over the past days. Lucas didn't move closer, didn't need to. He simply observed, his presence a quiet gravity around her. Ariana agreed to lunch with Ethan. A simple, controlled lunch. He had not insisted she cancel. He had not demanded she refuse. That was the danger. Lucas trailed at a distance, careful to remain invisible. He watched from the driver's seat as Ariana approached the table, greeted Ethan with a warmth that made the hairs on his arms stand up. They laughed, they gestured, leaned in slightly, eyes meeting with a familiarity Lucas couldn't get over. And yet, he felt no panic, only a tightening coil of need, of protection, of desire held firmly in check. He reminded himself, he could not control who she talked to. He could only control the environment around her, keep her safe, keep her free. Still, every gesture Ethan made, the casual tilt of the head, the faint hand gestures, the way he remembered the smallest details, reminded Lucas of what could have been and what he would never relinquish, the quiet claim he had on her life, body, and trust. And he would not allow anyone, even Ethan, to unravel it. The lunch passed smoothly. Ethan was careful, professional, charismatic in the kind of way that reminded Ariana of shared history, of long nights in the office and whispered debates about growth and strategy. But she noticed Lucas's presence outside, barely hidden in plain sight. The occasional reflection in the cafe window, the way she caught the sharp angle of his gaze from a distance. A flutter ran through her chest, equal parts reassurance and guilt. Ethan spoke about expansion, logistics, and projections. Ariana answered with clarity, precision, and authority. Every word reminded her that she remained in control. And yet, when she glanced at Lucas through the glass, she remembered why she craved his proximity, why the empty space he deliberately maintained between them burned so sharply. The most dangerous force in the room was not Ethan. It was Lucas Kane, quiet, restrained, powerful, watching and starving her of his touch and warmth. That evening, back in the penthouse, Ariana placed her phone on the nightstand and exhaled, exhausted. And still the air between them was charged with the invisible presence of his control. "You did well today," he said quietly, standing in the shadows near the balcony. "Did I?" she asked, voice soft, almost teasing. "Yes," he replied, tone unreadable. "You remained fully yourself, even with him there." Ariana tilted her head, studying him. "Even with him?" Lucas's gaze darkened, measured, impossible to read fully. "Even with anyone who might test your focus. Or mine." The statement hung between them, heavy, electric, unspoken, yet fully understood. Ariana took a step closer, but Lucas held his position. He didn't need to touch her. The space itself was a declaration, a reminder of the power he had over her, and claimed not by force, but by unwavering presence. And she knew it. She would never forget it. Night fell over the city, and the penthouse lights glowed softly, mirroring the quiet pulse of her own thoughts. Lucas hadn't moved from the balcony, yet his presence filled the space around her more fully than anyone else ever could. She felt him like gravity, constant, inevitable, impossible to ignore. Her phone buzzed again. "Ethan, another casual check-in. Hope you're unwinding. Long day." Ariana's lips curved almost unconsciously. It was nothing inappropriate, but she knew Lucas had noticed. She could feel the tension in the room, subtle, thick, like static before a storm. She picked up her phone, typing a short reply, careful to keep it neutral. "Yes, resting now, thank you." Her gaze flicked to Lucas, who had not moved an inch. His arms were crossed, posture perfect, expression unreadable. But she could feel it. Heat beneath the control, desire restrained, jealousy masked as duty. "You're holding back," she said softly, voice almost drowned by the hum of the city. Lucas didn't turn. "I always hold back." "Not like this," she murmured. "Not when someone else steps into your line of sight." He finally shifted slightly, his eyes catching hers in the reflection of the glass. "I am yours to command, Ari. I love you, but you are a beautiful and free woman. I love you too much to clip your wings." Her chest tightened. Those words, simple and precise, carried more weight than any declaration, any touch, any threat. They reminded her of everything she craved and everything she feared. Every instinct in him screamed to close the distance, to step forward, to claim the space that was technically his by right of history, proximity, and years of silent devotion. But he did not. He could not yet. Ethan's presence, though distant, had forced him into this painful discipline. Lucas had always controlled the situation, the perimeter, the threat, the narrative. Now he could only control himself, watch, protect, restrain. And every message she received from Ethan, every laugh shared at lunch, every moment where he had to give her space, it sharpened the ache. He thought of the countless times he had been there for her, saved her from danger, anticipated her needs, read the tiniest micro-expression to prevent harm. And now, the danger was subtle, emotional, slow-burning. Ethan had no weapons, no guns, no visible threat, only presence. And that presence gnawed at Lucas like acid. He would have preferred a physical threat or cyber intrusion any time than over this. He clenched his jaw. He wouldn't falter. He wouldn't let desire cloud duty. But when Ariana looked toward him, quietly acknowledging the tension, her breath catching in that way that made his control teeter. Lucas knew he was teetering dangerously close to surrender. A few days later, there was a board meeting. The boardroom was immaculate, glass walls reflecting the city skyline like a glittering cage. Every seat was filled with directors, advisors, and the occasional media liaison, an audience she hadn't wanted but had to face. Lucas remained near the door, posture rigid, eyes scanning exits, subtle gestures of control in the background. His presence was constant, protective, unyielding, but hidden enough to avoid drawing attention. Ethan was there too, calm, confident, perfectly measured in tone. He presented the numbers, projections, and strategic advantages with meticulous professionalism. Every word reinforced stability, credibility, and success. But the murmurs in the room betrayed their effect. Whispers floated through the air like invisible threads. She's letting him influence her decisions. The bodyguard's more than a shadow now. Is this appropriate for a CEO? Is his jealousy the reason why she is taking too long to sign off on the joint venture? Ariana ignored it externally, masking irritation with composed gestures. Internally, she felt the tug, Lucas's presence at the margins, tense but restrained, a quiet anchor against the rising current of scrutiny. When the board questioned her judgment subtly, suggesting that her close relationship with Lucas might cloud decisions, she countered with precision, authority ringing in every word. Ethan's polished presentation became a shield for her leadership, but he wasn't the one she sought when the adrenaline faded. Lucas felt each gaze like a blade. Every sideways glance, every whispered comment was a threat he couldn't touch. Not physically, not publicly. He could influence the room, block access, manage risk, but he couldn't control perception. Not here, not now. Every time Ariana responded, poised and commanding, Lucas's chest tightened. Pride swelled, but so did a sharp edge of frustration. He wanted to step forward, to claim her in front of them all, but he restrained himself, holding the line between duty and desire. Ethan, polite and professional, played the perfect foil. He didn't cross lines, didn't challenge Lucas openly, but the subtle claim in his presence was undeniable. Every gesture, every attentive question to Ariana reminded Lucas of what he couldn't do for her in public. When the meeting adjourned, the media presence outside had already begun its subtle work. Snippets of observations, carefully worded quotes, speculative commentary about CEO bodyguard dynamics. Lucas could feel the tension in Ariana's shoulders, the micro shifts in her posture as she navigated the board's scrutiny and the invisible narrative forming outside. Ariana stepped aside into the corridor, phone buzzing quietly with another subtle reminder from Ethan. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Lucas followed silently, the distance between them both professional and torturous. She wanted to reach out, to reassure him, to remind him that despite appearances, he remained entirely hers and entirely his. And that's exactly what she would do once the penthouse doors closed and the chaos of perception faded to background noise. The penthouse door closed behind them, muffling the distant hum of the city and the soft click of media shutters outside. Finally, away from the boardroom glare and whispered speculations, she could breathe. Lucas leaned against the balcony railing, arms crossed, jaw tight. He had followed her as always, silent, ever watchful, a presence that demanded awareness without intrusion. She stepped closer, hesitated for a heartbeat, then let her hand brush lightly against his chest. His eyes lifted slowly, dark and assessing. Not anger, not approval, something far more intense, wanting restrained by ironclad control. "I saw you today," she murmured, voice low, almost private. "I saw everything, and I want you to know, I love you. I always have always will." Lucas's gaze softened ever so slightly, just enough to betray the steel beneath. "Words are easy," he said quietly. "Actions, harder." Her fingers slid along the fabric of his jacket, feeling the tension coiled beneath. "Then let me act for both of us," she whispered. "Please, just hold on a little longer. The board, the media, this frenzy, once it settles, we can—" He didn't interrupt. He let her words sink in, let her touch linger. And in the quiet of the penthouse, she could feel him relax fractionally, the weight of control loosening for just a moment. You don't know how much I want that, he admitted softly, his voice a rumble in the space between them. Every day I wait. Every day I hold back. And yet, he hesitated, his hands brushing hers lightly, just fingertips grazing. Every day I stay. Her breath caught and she leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. The warmth of him, the solid strength that had kept her safe for years, grounded her. Then stay, she whispered. For me. Just stay a little longer. Lucas closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. The tension between restraint and desire, between duty and longing, was almost unbearable. But for her, always for her, he stayed. She pressed a brief kiss to his temple, gentle and intimate, a promise rather than a claim. And for the first time all day, Lucas allowed himself a microcosm of surrender, just enough to reassure her, just enough to let her know he would never leave. Even as the city lights outside flickered with a world full of whispers and speculation, inside the penthouse, there was only the quiet certainty of their bond, fragile, tense, yet unbreakable. He felt her warmth against him, the soft strength of her hand, and he let himself remain. Not entirely, never entirely, restraint was still the undercurrent of his existence, but enough to let her know, to let her feel, that his loyalty, his love, his desire were all hers. Outside, the world spun, but here, in the quiet, he could finally exhale. And Ariana could finally rest, if only for a moment, knowing that the storm of optics and speculation could rage, but their tether would not break. They stayed like that for long minutes, the quiet intimacy more potent than any touch, more binding than any contract. Because in their world, in the empire they built together, power was proven not only in control but in trust, restraint, and the patience to survive the chaos together. And that, Lucas thought, finally letting the thought linger, was just the beginning. That fateful morning, Ariana had scheduled the contract signing with Ethan's company. The moment the call came from his old friend, a cold knot of urgency formed in his chest. Meet me. Now. It's serious. Lucas's instincts flared. He glanced at Ariana, seated at the head of the table, poised and radiant in her tailored suit, ready to sign a contract that would shift the balance of everything. He caught her gaze and murmured softly, I'll be back. Trust me. You have to be there, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, glancing at him as he packed his phone away. You will be fine, he replied, tone low, distant. My secondary team is as efficient as I am. You don't need me hovering all the time. Her chest tightened. She wanted him there, not because she doubted herself, but because the world, Ethan, and the weight of her decisions demanded a shield she trusted above all else. I'm signing this today. I need you with me, she said firmly. Lucas's jaw flexed. I know, and I promise you, it'll be all right. Ariana exhaled slowly, reluctantly trusting him, as Lucas gave her a reassuring nod and stepped back. She hesitated, the tension palpable, but the determination in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He would protect her, even from distance, even from the unseen threats she didn't yet know existed. Later that morning, sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the boardroom where the final contract sat on the polished oak table. The ink felt heavier than it should have, as if the signatures themselves carried the weight of the choices it represented, or was it his absence that made everything feel so heavy? The board members and Ethan's team waited patiently as Ariana prepared to sign. Ethan leaned forward, a confident Lucas's absence made him happier, a smooth smile on his face, unaware of the storm just beyond the door. Once you sign here, Ariana, this partnership is finalized, he said, pen hovering over the paper. Her hand lifted the pen, poised for the decisive stroke, when suddenly the door slammed open. Lucas burst in, coat flaring behind him like a shadow breaking through the sunlight. His eyes locked on hers, intensity radiating in a way that froze the room. Wait, he barked, voice sharp and commanding, the kind of authority that brooked no argument. Ariana's pen trembled. Lucas strode to her side, leaned close, and whispered something just for her ears. Her eyes widened, a spark of fury igniting as she turned sharply to Ethan. What? Ethan began, incredulous. but she silenced him with a single glare before returning her gaze to Lucas. "Are you sure?" she asked, voice loud enough for the room to hear, eyes searching his. "Absolutely," Lucas replied, steady and unwavering. Ariana rose from her chair decisively and walked past Ethan, ignoring his mounting frustration. "We'll postpone," she said, calm yet commanding. "To tomorrow afternoon." Ethan's jaw clenched. "What? What's going on?" Ariana didn't answer. She didn't need to. Lucas was there, her anchor, her protector, her silent power. And in that instant, Ethan realized he had lost the moment before it even began. Lucas followed Ariana to the door, hand brushing against hers for a brief, almost imperceptible moment. It was reassurance, warning, and promise all in one. No one else needed to know. Not now, not yet. The power in the room shifted irrevocably, and Lucas Kane had once again proven that control wasn't taken. It was held quietly, unshakably, through presence, timing, and the unwavering claim of the heart. They didn't speak until the penthouse doors closed behind them, cutting the buzz of the city and the lingering tension of the boardroom behind. He moved immediately to the table, placing a folder in front of Ariana without preamble. "Read this," he said, voice low, clipped, urgent. Ariana opened it, eyes scanning quickly. Documents, certificates, financial statements, all clean on first glance, but Lucas's note marked key areas in red. "What is this?" she asked, brow furrowed. "Ethan's company," Lucas began, pacing slowly, jaw tight. "It's bankrupt. Every single document they've shown you so far is fraudulent." Her hand froze on a page. "Fraudulent? How is that possible?" Lucas's eyes were dark, stormy but controlled. "He got them by threatening a government official. That's how they passed the tests. That's how he made his company look legitimate." Ariana's breath hitched. "Are you sure?" "I've traced everything. Cross-checked third parties, audit trails, compliance databases. Every number is cooked, every certificate forged, and he's been running this con for months, maybe years. Even the official he threatened is ready to testify." She leaned back, swallowing hard. The realization hit like ice water. The man she had considered an ally, a business associate, even a friend, was nothing but a facade. "And he wanted me to sign, to commit everything to him," she whispered. "Everything we've built." "Yes," Lucas said simply. "He was going to suck you dry, and most importantly leave you with his debt. That's why his terms seem to favor you." Her chest tightened as she exhaled slowly, processing the betrayal and the risk. She looked at Lucas, and the tension between them shifted. Relief, gratitude, and something darker, desire, mingled with trust. "You," she began, voice catching, "you saved me. Again. And I didn't even see it." Lucas crossed the room slowly, closing the space between them. He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, then brushed it down to her wrist, steadying her trembling fingers. "It's my duty to protect you, always and forever." Her eyes softened, but the worry still lingered. "Lucas, this means Ethan. Everything we saw, everything he presented, it's all lies, and he's been dangerous all along." Lucas's jaw flexed. "Exactly, and now you know. Now we can play on the same board." She swallowed, the power in her chest returning, but tempered by relief and lingering fear. I trust you," she murmured, leaning into the touch that grounded her. "Do what you gotta do. I will deal with him head on tomorrow." Lucas's lips curved in a rare, almost imperceptible smile. "It's all set," he said. "And nothing, no one, will get close enough to hurt you. Not him, not anyone." She allowed herself to rest against him, just a fraction closer than before. The penthouse was quiet except for the distant hum of the city, but inside, the storm of betrayal, power, and trust had reached a new equilibrium. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered, pressing a fleeting kiss to his temple. "You'll never have to find out," he said, voice low, steady, certain. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time that day, Ariana felt the weight of danger lift. Not entirely, but enough to know that whatever came next, they would face it together. The following day, the boardroom gleamed under the afternoon sunshine. Every chair filled, cameras poised, microphones capturing the faintest whispers. Ariana entered with her usual controlled confidence, tailored suit perfect, heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The air was thick with anticipation, except one expected presence was missing. Ethan. Her lips curved slightly. Of course he wouldn't show up, not when the noose had begun to tighten around him. But he had underestimated something he didn't understand. Lucas Kane. Lucas stood just behind her, immaculately poised, silent as always. But his eyes gleamed with purpose. She didn't need to ask. She knew every contingency had been planned, every angle covered, every potential move by Ethan already accounted for. The media was in place. Board members sat, tense but attentive. Cameras rolled. Ariana stepped forward, letting her voice carry confidently through the room. "Before we proceed," she began, "there is something that must be addressed publicly." Gasps rippled through the boardroom. Whispers flickered among the cameras. She clicked a remote, projecting documents onto the large screen behind her. Certificates, falsified financial statements, emails, correspondence with government officials, all meticulously compiled. "These documents represent the company Ethan Cole has presented as legitimate," Ariana said slowly, letting her words land with precision. "They are fraudulent. Every certificate, every number, every promise has been fabricated to deceive, manipulate, and coerce." A stunned silence fell. Cameras zoomed in on her face. Board members murmured to each other. "And," she continued, voice firm and unwavering, "we have evidence of the methods he used, threats to government officials, manipulation of regulatory systems, and intentional misrepresentation of corporate health. Law enforcement is now aware, and investigations have begun. Ethan Cole will answer for his actions." "One more thing I would like to say on this matter," she continued, addressing the board her members. "I am the CEO of this company for a reason. I am that good. Once upon a time you trusted me with your money, and you have been living lavishly with the profits I have made for you over the past 5 years. You have families, and some of you even have mistresses. I have never questioned your private lives. Henceforth, I would appreciate it if you could accord me the same level of respect and stay out of my bedroom affairs." She once more reassured the media people that Ethan would be caught and he will answer for his crimes. With that, she left the podium and left everyone stunned. Lucas didn't speak, didn't need to. His team, positioned discreetly outside, had tracked every move Ethan had made, ensuring there was no sudden retaliation. Surveillance, contingencies, protective measures, everything Lucas had taught Ariana about control and power had been applied flawlessly. When Ethan realized the full extent of exposure, he knew he was cornered, his con unraveling in real time, his plans nullified, the game he thought he controlled slipping from his grasp. And yet, desperation breeds recklessness. From a safe distance, monitoring the unfolding chaos, he seethed. Every step he had taken to manipulate, to secure his con, to corner Ariana, had been anticipated. Lucas Kane had thought of everything. But he had one last card, one final offensive, because he realized he had nothing left to lose. And when someone has nothing to lose, they are very dangerous. She turned to Lucas, eyes steady. His presence grounded her, reminded her she wasn't alone. The media, the board, the police, they all saw a composed, confident leader. The truth was hers, and she wielded it like a weapon. "Everything is ready," she murmured to Lucas, just for him. Lucas's jaw tightened, eyes flashing a rare glimmer of both pride and anticipation. "Then let's finish this," he said, low, controlled, powerful. Ethan's pulse raced as he navigated the city streets, every twist and turn a calculated effort to stay ahead of the law, or so he thought. Cameras flashed briefly at intersections, security checkpoints monitored, but in his mind he was invisible, untouchable. He had nothing to lose, and in that recklessness, he convinced himself he was the most dangerous player in the game. But he had underestimated Lucas Kane. Every step Ethan took was being watched, every maneuver anticipated. Lucas had cameras throughout the city, not just at the penthouse, not just at the office, but everywhere Ethan could go. He had eyes on him in real time, a web of surveillance that made every escape route predictable, every impulse visible. Ethan's confidence swelled as he saw what he thought was opportunity. Ahead, a couple stepped out of a black car. A man tall, broad, and immaculately dressed, and a woman, sharp and commanding, unmistakably poised. In his mind, it had to be Lucas and Ariana, the perfect target, the perfect chance to exact revenge. "This is it," he muttered under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter, heart hammering. Finally. Lucas watched in real time, every monitor a different angle, every sensor relaying movement, every footstep of Ethan's being tracked. He didn't panic. He never panicked. There was no chaos in his control, only strategy, patience, and precision. The one thing Ethan didn't understand was that a man with everything to protect, someone whose life, love, and legacy were tied to the person in his care, was far more dangerous than someone reckless with nothing. Lucas's fingers brushed the console, adjusting feeds, confirming that secondary teams were in position. Every avenue was covered. Every possible offensive by Ethan funneled toward a single, controlled path, because the city itself was now Lucas's weapon. As the building came into view, Ethan's mind fixated on the couple. He didn't hesitate. Revenge had clouded his reasoning. Every calculated move was now fueled by rage and desperation. "They won't see me coming," he muttered. "I'll take him out, and everything else will follow." His car swerved, tires screaming on asphalt. The distance to the entrance seemed impossibly short. The black-suited man, Lucas, was entirely unaware, entirely vulnerable, or so Ethan assumed. But he had never encountered someone like Lucas. Someone who anticipated, who measured, who controlled everything, especially the one thing most precious to him. And now, Ethan was barreling straight into the trap. The night was dark, streets slick with recent rain. Shadows clung to every corner as Ethan's car slowed near the building. He saw them, stepping out of a black vehicle, a tall, broad man and a sharp, commanding woman. His chest tightened. There they were, Lucas and Ariana. At last, his chance to settle the score, to make them pay. He gripped his gun tightly, heart hammering, fury and desperation driving him forward. Every instinct screamed revenge. Every thought circled the same. Take him out. Make her suffer. The couple moved with calm precision, both of them wearing the same clothes as Ariana and Lucas had worn that morning, unaware of the danger, or so it seemed. Ethan's lips curled into a cruel smile. As he walked stealthily closer to the couple standing outside by the car, all the surrounding lights went out, leaving the parking lot quiet dark. He leveled the gun at the tall man's chest. "You think you can control everything," he shouted, adrenaline and rage coiling through him. "You've ruined me, and you—" He spun toward the woman. "You had it easy. Now feel what I feel." The first shot rang out. The man staggered, collapsing to the wet pavement. Ethan's heart raced, the sound of his own gunfire deafening in his mind. He screamed at the woman, certain he had destroyed Lucas and broken her spirit. "I never liked you, and now you'll pay." In that instant, the lights came back on, and from the shadows, Lucas's team advanced. They didn't reveal themselves fully, just enough to contain every avenue of escape. Ethan's eyes darted, realizing nothing made sense, but fury drowned logic. More shots, more shouting, but then hands grabbed him from behind. He struggled violently, laughing, shaking, certain that even if captured, he had already won. "Lucas is dead! You can't stop me! You'll see! I've won!" he screamed. Then the truth hit. A pair of figures emerged from the building, tall, broad, unmistakable in silhouette. Ethan froze. Lucas and Ariana stepped into the dim light, safe, unharmed, their presence deliberate and precise. The realization dawned all at once. The couple outside were lookalikes, carefully planted to draw him in. The chest wound wasn't even real. He was wearing a vest. It was a decoy. Every move he thought was chance had been orchestrated, every path anticipated. He had been lured in, and like a frenzied fool, he had fallen for it. Ethan's laugh faltered, turning to a scream of rage and disbelief. The trap had closed around him completely. You set me up! This isn't over!" he shouted, struggling against the officers restraining him. Lucas stepped forward, calm, lethal, every inch the storm he had promised to be. Ariana's hand rested lightly on his arm, grounding him, signaling their unity, their control. "You were dangerous because you thought you had nothing to lose," Lucas said quietly, voice like steel. "I'm dangerous because I have everything to protect, and you—" He gestured toward Ethan. "We're never in control." The officers tightened their hold, dragging Ethan toward a waiting vehicle. He screamed, raged, and laughed in disbelief, but deep down, he knew he had been bested at every turn. From the control room upstairs, Ariana had watched it all, heart steady, pulse racing. Every camera feed, every motion sensor, every step of the trap had been meticulously monitored. Lucas turned to her now as they stood outside watching Ethan being taken away, eyes flashing just briefly, a silent affirmation. Everything had gone according to plan. She exhaled, allowing herself the smallest private smile. "I'd hate to be your enemy. You're ruthless," she murmured. "Nobody touches what's mine and gets away with it," he replied, lips brushing her temple in a fleeting, grounding touch. The city sprawled below, lights flickering in the dark. The night had been theirs, controlled, precise, victorious. And for once, Ariana allowed herself to simply breathe, knowing the storm had been contained, for now. As they forced him toward the police car, Ethan twisted in their grip, eyes wild, laughter cracking into something unhinged. The flashing blue and red lights painted his face in fractured color. "This isn't over!" he shouted, voice carrying through the night. "You think this ends with me?" His gaze locked on Lucas and Ariana standing together at the building entrance. "There are others, plenty of them. You'll never see them coming." The door slammed shut, cutting off his voice, but not the threat. Lucas didn't react outwardly. He never did. But Ariana felt the subtle shift beside him, the way his body recalibrated, already filing the words away, not as fear, but as data. A warning. A looming threat. The next 48 hours unfolded like controlled chaos. Headlines broke fast, then faster. Fraud. Coercion. A corporate illusion dismantled in real time. And then, unexpectedly, the narrative shifted. CEO outsmarts corporate con inside the trap that took down Ethan Cole. Security genius Lucas Kane anticipates every move. The media, once hungry for scandal, pivoted to admiration. Analysts praised the precision of the operation. Commentators spoke of restraint, foresight, and ethical leadership. And for the first time, they didn't hide her relationship. They framed it, not as impropriety, but as alignment. Ariana stood at her office window, tablet in hand, reading an article that made her pause. Lucas Kane is now being called the gold standard in executive security, strategist, protector, and architect of one of the most controlled takedowns in recent corporate history. She looked up to find him across the room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, quietly reviewing security updates like it was any other day. "They like you," she said softly. Lucas glanced up. "They like results." She smiled. "They like us." He had never cared about recognition. Reputation was a byproduct, not a goal. But he understood its value, especially now. Public approval meant insulation. Visibility meant deterrence. And the shift was undeniable. The board backed Ariana without hesitation. Investors stabilized. Security firms reached out quietly, respectfully, asking for consultations, partnerships, and insight. Lucas declined most of them. Some even went as far as seeking audience with Ariana to ask her to link them. After much persuasion by her, he agreed to investigate the companies first. His priority hadn't changed. He crossed the room, stopping in front of Ariana, lowering his voice. Ethan's words weren't empty, he was reckless, but he wasn't wrong about one thing. She met his gaze, calm, steady. "There will be others." "Yes," he said simply. She reached for him then, no hesitation this time, fingers curling into the front of his shirt. Not desperation, not fear, trust. "Then we'll be ready," she said. Lucas covered her hand with his own, grounding, solid. Always. That night, as the city finally quieted, she rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. The world had seen them now, had judged, applauded, accepted. But what mattered most wasn't the headlines. It was this. The man beside her didn't protect her because it was his job. He did it because she was his purpose. And somewhere out there, unseen and unnamed, new threats were already forming. She didn't doubt that. But for the first time, she also didn't fear it. Because power wasn't just something she wielded in boardrooms anymore. It was standing right beside her, watching, waiting, already 10 steps ahead. What do you think of Lucas and Ariana's relationship so far? Do you think they will survive the next attack? Subscribe, like, share, and comment below to predict who might attack them next, or who was the woman working with Ethan.